quick disclaimer before we start this project. I have a very bad habit of keeping everything. So in this project, we're going to be using some old jeans that I've already cut into sections. Metal fastener for the tote in order to have like a closure. Then I have this fabric that we're about to see in a second that I don't even know where I got this fabric from. I think it was like a donated fabric to me. One of my mom's friends was getting rid of some old fabric and she gave it to me. So I'm going to be using that for the liner. It's not a personal favorite, but I mean, it's like extra scrap fabric. Then I'm using the pockets from the jeans that I destroyed, in so many words, but they were already destroyed. Pins. Of course, you're going to need some scissors. And preferably a rotary cutting tool. You're also going to need a self-healing mat and a ruler that you can cut up against so that you can cut all the little thousands of squares. We're not going to cut thousands, but it surely feels like it. So just going over the materials one more time so we can get started. Of course, the first thing you want to do is going to start cutting your squares. I wanted my tote to be a certain size, and so I decided to kind of do like a little calculation to make sure that each piece was the same size. So I'm doing 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, a perfect square, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side. So I'm using my rotary tool and my self-healing mat to kind of just measure out each square. And I find it easier to kind of, excuse my arm, but to kind of just make the fabric squared already, so that way your sides can be even, and then you could just kind of put it up against the line, if that makes any sense. So here I'm just kind of trimming off the excess just to make it even. And if you apply enough pressure, I mean, it does really good. I mean, it cuts it like butter, like I'm not kidding you. And so here I'm just continuing to kind of trim those excess edges off, and then I'll be able to just line it up against my self-healing mat and just measure out what I need. I needed to do at least 40 of these. I know it sounds crazy. 44.5 by 4.5 inch squares. And that's 20 on one side and 20 on the other side. And so it was a little bit time consuming, I'm not going to even lie. But if you take your time, it's really easy if you have the right tools, of course. I can't even imagine trying to do this with scissors. So if you decide to do this or any quilting project, you are going to need one of these tools. I don't know what else is out there. This is like my first little quilted project that I've ever done. So I don't know what else kind of tools is out there, but for me, this was really easy just to do it this way. So after I cut 20 squares, I laid them all out on my cutting table just to kind of visualize what it looked like. I realized then I had a problem. I must really like dark wash jeans. I don't know, but my kids and me and everybody in my family must wear them. So after I was trying to kind of place like a pattern to kind of see what I could make them look like, you know, just kind of like play around with the different washes, I realized it wasn't going to work. And so I'm just showing right now I had 5 squares across and I had 4 squares going down. But then I realized, oh, if I turn it on the other side, there is a different look. So I suggest you lay out first what you want your pattern to look like and then get ready to sew it together. So here is my pattern that I have created. It's kind of like a alternating dark, good side, bad side, good side, bad side, I guess you could call it. And so I really like how it came out. And then after you get everything laid out, all you have to do is just go to the sewing machine and sew it together. I decided to experiment a little and use my Overcast stitch, which actually uses another foot So after reading my manual, which I never do, I figured out how to do it. I changed the foot on my sewing machine and I got started. To me, it felt like it would make it better. It would make it more stable and make the pieces stay together. And it would also give me an ability to make the seam allowance be right at a 1/4 inch, because the Overcast foot has like a little edge, and the edge is about a 1/4 inch long, or a 1/4 inch wide rather. So when you place the fabric up against it, it actually gives you like a really clean straight line. And not only that, it gives a zigzag stitch, so it kind of wraps around the fabric and keeps it taut, which to me is kind of important when you're dealing with something like this, because you don't want to have like faulty stitches and then have things kind of come apart with wear and tear. So this to me makes it way more stable. So I'm just double checking my book really quickly just to make sure I'm picking the right stitch. And then I'm going to get started. I'm not going to bore you too much with the sewing. I'm going to kind of fast forward because this whole project took quite some time. And the video will be super duper long. So I'm going to just kind of fast forward through a couple things just to show you. But I mean, if you already know how to sew, you pretty much already know how to do this. So I'll be right back. So when you're finished sewing your first row together, you'll have 5 squares alternating sides, and it'll be just like one big long line. And there is my baby boy. I have to watch. He likes to sit on my lap when I sew, but I swear he's going to be sewing before he's 3. I promise you. Like, he knows how to place the fabric and everything underneath the sewing machine. So anyway, so I bring everything back to the table and just kind of make sure everything is laid out properly. I do double check all the stitches just to make sure that they all stitch down properly. And now all I have to do is just combine these rows together. And I'll do the same method that I did when I did the squares individually. I'm going to use my overcasting stitch to make sure that they overlap. And I really am pleased with the way it came out. It makes it super neat and secure. Like, you could pull them and they're not going to go anywhere. So I'm back at the sewing machine, and I'm going to go on and fast forward it here so you can see what I did. Okay, so please remember, this is my first time doing anything quilted like, and I am absolutely in love with the way it came out. It looks like one big piece of fabric. I don't even know how to explain it. There's a couple little mistakes I made, like you can see right there, and it might have been a cutting error, or it might have been maybe I didn't do my seam allowance properly, but overall I am really happy with the way it came out, and I'm very excited. And really, you could do like a raw edge like that, or you could do the smooth edge. I think either one of them would probably work, but you just want to make sure if you do the raw edge that everything is secure. Now it's time to do the other side, and I've already got my squares cut, and again, this was 40 squares total. So I'm going to do the same thing I did to the one side. I'm going to start laying the squares out and kind of coming up with a pattern, and I did the same thing, the alternating sides, good side to bad side, and then I'm going to stitch those together. So I have my front and back panels done. I am super duper thrilled on how nice they came out. So now it's time to do the side pieces that's going to attach everything together. Now, depending upon the size of your bag, you're going to probably need to figure out what your dimensions are going to be, but you'll need a piece for the bottom and 2 pieces for the side. And I just measured what I needed and made the width the same as the square so that everything can be nice and boxy. So I sewed all these items together, and then you want to do it outside, reverse side, and then when you turn everything inside out, you'll have these sharp corners, which I'm about to do right now. I think I'm going to fast forward through this part because, like I said, this whole project was kind of long and I don't want the video to be long. So I'm going to go on and fast forward through me sewing this, and then we'll see what's next. So I have the basic tote done, and I'm just kind of cleaning up the outsides using my lint remover brush, I guess, thingy majigga. What do you call that thing? I don't even know. Anyway, and cutting some of my loose strings and just kind of brushing away some of the lint. But as you can see, it has the basic bag shape. And next, what you would want to do is, if you have any accessories that you would like to attach, I end up making a camera case to attach to the inside of the tote. And also, if the straps, you need to work on the straps next. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and then I'll get started with the next part of the tote. You will notice a bit of lighting change at this point because it is the next day. I ended up stopping what I did the night before with what you had saw, and just came the next day to start the straps. The footage is a little bit blurry, not sure what happened there, but basically what I did is I took one flat piece of fabric and I stitched both of the sides in just a little bit to kind of finish the edge, and then I folded it, I ironed it and folded it over and then stitched it down. I used a gold thread to kind of mimic the look of jeans. It didn't come out exactly how I was hoping it would come out as far as the gold thread goes, but overall, you know, it was able to make the strap properly. So I'm going to just fast forward to the next part and show you guys what I did from there. Okay, now it's time to work on the liner, which is an optional thing. You don't have to do it, but to me it makes it cleaner. So I'm just going to go on and sew my little internal pockets. I'm going to try to mimic the little jean pockets on the inside. And I'm going to sew those down, and then take the fabric and go on and make the inside lining, which is going to still be the same little box shape that you did for the actual tote. And then we'll see you on the other side. Okay, the last step I need to do before I combine everything is to make my closure piece. I made a flap to attach the magnetic closure to, and we're going to sew it to one side of the tote and then have it go over to the next side of the tote. So I just basically took like a rectangle piece and just kind of measured it and eyeballed it just to the kind of dimensions that I wanted to do it. And of course this will depend on how big your tote is overall. And then I just sewed it together so on the wrong side, so that way I can flip it on the right side and it would be nice and clean edges. So I'm going to finish this up and then I'll be right back. So when you use this closure, you actually have like prongs that go through the fabric and another side to kind of keep it in place. And then all you do is just fold the prongs either inward or outward. I like to do it inward, but I have seen some people do it outward. But I like to fold mine inward. So you just have to fold it in and just kind of secure it. Sometimes you might have to use a hammer in order to fold it in because it's really, really sturdy. I'm not sturdy, but it's really hard to fold in. So right there, I'm just using my scissors to kind of press it in some. And then you can have that part be on the inside. Then when I flip it on the right side, then you will see the better side of the closure. So I'm going to just close this up and then I'll be able to flip it inside out, or right side out rather, and then go to the next step. Now after all of your pieces are done, it's time to assemble. I go ahead and pin down where I want everything to lay. So that way when I go to sew it, it will all be in the right place. That's my little camera case that I made for my GoPro. So I want it to be attached to the inside of the purse, or the tote rather, so that way I won't lose it. It's super duper small. So anyway, just kind of showing how I have the straps and everything kind of laid out. So I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and go on and tack everything down. I'm going to double stitch it, like going over it a couple times just to make sure it's super secure. And then I'll be ready to put the lining in. Okay, now it's time to attach the liner, and I promise you by this point you're going to be super tired and ready to be done with it. But take your time because you have to make sure you have the liner placed properly on top of it, of the tote. So what I do is turn the liner inside out, place the tote inside of it, pin it down, and then I just sew around the edges. And then what I'm going to do is cut like a little slit on one of the sides of the liner just to be able to turn it inside, right side out, and then be able to tuck it inside of the tote, if that makes any sense. And then I'll go back and stitch the little opening that I created. So here I'm just about to get started to sew the liner in, and I'll be right back. All right, so everything is attached, and as you can see, I have cut just a small opening, and really not even cut. I just used my seam ripper to kind of open up one of the little hidden sides of the liner, and I'm just turning it right side out. I'm not even sure how to explain it like with words, but as you can see the way I'm turning it outside in or inside out. But anyway, it ends up being to the point where you can literally, once you put it on the right side, push everything into the tote and it'll tuck right in. So that little space where I made these, where I used my seam ripper to kind of open it up, I'm just going to take it back through to my sewing machine and just close it down. Since it already had a stitch there before, it actually kind of is easy because it just folds kind of back over and you could just tack it down. So I'm just pushing everything down, just making sure everything is lined up. And then I do have to put my exterior fastener on the outside of the purse. So I'll do all, or the tote. I keep wanting to call it a purse, but it's a tote. I'm calling it a tote. But anyway, so that's the finished product with my liner. So like I said, I just got to do the fastener and we'll be good to go. Now, something optional you can do to kind of finish off the tote before you're 100% done is just kind of do a stitch on the outside of the tote as close to the edge as possible, just to kind of make sure everything kind of lays down and lays flat. I ended up doing it with the tote, and I think it was like the right thing to do, because even though the liner was in there and everything fit down in nicely, I could still see like a little bit of the liner kind of peeking through, and I wanted it to have like a really clean finished edge. Now to add the fastener, I decided to use like a small little piece of jean just to kind of tack it on to the tote. It does give it a better base to stabilize the fastener on, because I didn't want to put it through the tote and it not have like a good base, if that makes any sense. Because sometimes just you opening and closing it, I've had one of these before on another tote, another purse that I made. Opening and closing it after a while, it does kind of make it wear and kind of tear at the fabric. So I felt like this would give it a good stability or a good base to have it be a little bit sturdier. Guys, so here is the finished project. I really like how it came out. I was torn about how to do the pattern, and I like the fact that I reversed it. So on some sides it's, you know, the negative part of the jean and then the positive part of the jean. I don't know what else to call it at this point. I really do like how it came out. Okay, I'm sorry. It's about 20 from on the front, like side to side, and then up and down it's about 16. So yep, I got about right where I wanted it to be. The squares were 4.5 by 4.5, and then I gave myself a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all sides, which made them 4 by 4. There's a couple spots where, probably not on this side. I took my time more on this side, because once I got the hang of it, I realized what I was doing wrong. So right here, I think I did really good lining them up. On this side, of course, there's a couple spots that aren't lined up. So this one is probably not 4 by 4, or this one is just too big. But some of them lined up really good. And then, of course, once you get one off, you get a bunch of them off. But, I mean, you know, I end up making this the back of it. So, which it really doesn't matter, honestly. Let's take a gander on the inside really quickly. If I can open this up. So, I end up putting the pockets right here. But I am contemplating taking them off. Me and my daughter was trying to decide whether we put the pockets in the front or not. But she thought it'd be a better idea to put them on the inside. But anyway, so here's the inside lining. I did sew that closure shut, but I can't even, yeah, here it is right here. So when I did the turning out, I sewed right there. It's tucked down in there. And then I have my little camera bag. I had the hardest time sewing this shut on my sewing machine. It kept like birds nesting on the back. So anyway, I had to hand sew it. It's not the best, but I mean, it's done. And then my camera could just go down there. I did like matching coordinating fabric. Got the camera down in there. So the camera sits down in there. It's like just a little GoPro. I think it's silver, like the little Hero Silver, I think it's called. All right, so here is it, completed and done. So happy with it. I really do like it. I think it's just got so much going on. I feel like it's a big accomplishment. I've been wanting to learn how to do quilting for some time. So for this being my first little quilted type situation, I think I did pretty good. And I like the fact that, you know, it's different. Instead of jeans that I could have thrown away because they had like holes in the knees, you know, some of my kids' jeans or whatever, I was able to take the pieces and make like something, you know, kind of cool with it. And I'm digging it. I'm digging it. So here's like my little drawing that I came up with for how to plan out the squares. I came up with the idea, I guess, that if I wanted my squares to be equal, I'd have to have both sides be divisible by that number. And since I wanted to do 4 by 4 squares, I decided 16 and 20 is the best way, because then you have 4 going down, 5 going across, which ends up being the case. Or if you wanted to do something bigger or smaller, you might want to do a 3 by 3 square, or, you know, 5 by 5. And then in that case, you might could do a 15 by 20 or something like that. So that's something to consider when you're making the pattern for it, is to definitely draw it out so you can know how it's going to look. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please let me know. Guys, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye. Are you sewing? Yeah. You sewing? I'm impressed. You did all of this? this? You sewed this? I'm ready to sign you up for something. Yeah? What you think?